In this episode, I get a chance to speak with Brandon Lucero, who is the founder of Video 4X Effect and also the host of the New Generation Entrepreneur podcast. Now, Brandon has been instrumental in helping me personally to get in more alignment, to get more clear on my mission, my message, and to show up fully with my heart. And so in this episode, I talked to Brandon about how the art of letting go allowed him to begin to scale his business into the millions, but that was the key focus in letting go. So stick around. I'm Adam Kadu, and it's time to master the art of real heart alignment, where you live, work, and play from your personal power as energy aligns, your gifts flow, and life simply works. These life-changing conversations are designed to help you to see what you're not seeing, hear what you're not hearing, and to be who you're not being, as the world needs more heart-centered leaders now more than ever. Are you ready to say no to living a half-hearted life and say yes instead to boldly living from a place of real heart alignment? Welcome to the Adam Kadu podcast. And without further introduction, I bring you Brandon Lucero.
Yeah. Excited to be here, man. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course, man. Of course. How we feeling? How's the vibe going?
It's good as always. Well, not as always, but as as majority, I guess.
We were just talking beforehand about just connecting with energy a little bit, meditation, and I think that's one of the things that allows you to connect a little bit deeper with your audience is just staying in a good place. And you know, the world is trying to pull people's attention this way, that way, the other way, and when we can stay in our center and stay in our power, then we don't need to get in the water. We don't need to get wet. We can stay on the path a little bit more. So
totally. Yeah. 100%.
Yeah. Well, cool, man. So this conversation definitely want to dive into some of your evolution of your entrepreneur journey, just where you've come from, where you're going, and what kind of drives you at this stage in the game. And Brandon and I were just talking. He had published a video here just, in the last few hours, I think, on Instagram TV, IGTV, where he went back and basically dissected a video that he published. Just kind of like showing some of the things that he was doing back then that he doesn't necessarily agree with today. And he was just like, he also made note of, look, I was just doing it. I was showing up. I was putting myself out there. I was doing it. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs, and this is one thing I've learned from Brandon tremendously, is a lot of entrepreneurs get in this perfectionism mode and they slow themselves down and they overthink everything. And Brandon's the type person. It's like, let's get it out there. Let's test it. So let's start out the conversation and speak to that a little bit. Just what is it about you that allows you to just kind of let go and just to test things and be that scientist and move forward a little bit more fluidly than most entrepreneurs?
Yeah. I mean, I'll be honest with you. It took me a while. I think when I first started building my team, well, let's go way back. So for me, I remember getting into business. My focus was on money. It was like, oh man, how to make, because I didn't have any. It was like, I want to move out. I was living with my in-laws. I wanted to move out. I just wanted to be able to pay the bills. So a lot of like, when I would study something, I'd get really, really excited about that thing. And I'd be like, this is what I need to do. And I would be really motivated to go do it for the money. Like, I'm going to make money. I'm going to finally get out of this thing. So I never had a problem with not taking action and testing and tweaking and things like that, because I had the end goal in mind. I'm like, that's more important. That's what I want. That's what I want. And I guess I just have always been pretty optimistic. So I've always just kind of been like, yeah, that's going to happen. I know that's going to happen. Let's do this. But I would say where it really, really started to develop this idea of being able to test, not worry about perfectionism, a lot of that type of stuff. Two things. Number one is I was never great with English. Like, that was one of my worst subjects in school, like grammar and stuff like that. Like, if you told me I was going to get paid as much as I do to write scripts for people, like back in high school, I've been like, you're crazy. There's no way. And I mean, sometimes people pay me up to $20,000 to write like a video series for them or more sometimes. And back then I'm like, no, there's no way. So this whole idea of realizing, oh my gosh, I don't need to have perfect grammar and I don't need this. In fact, I don't like that stuff. Yeah. I'm not going to worry about that anymore because I can still be successful without it. It's like this, losing that indoctrination. It's like losing those structures of this is the way things are going to be, has been really, really helpful for me to be able to just move forward without perfectionism. But you're going to get a point in business where letting go has to evolve. And that's when you start getting team members. And your team members you have to give them responsibility in order to grow the business, grow their department. And that was the hardest thing for me to do. The
Yeah.
hardest thing was like, I'm fine just putting something out there. If it's me and I make a typo, like, I don't really care. But when my team does it, it was like, whoa, that's a reflection on us. And I had to do this whole like, look at myself in the mirror, like, why is it okay for them and
Mm.
not you? And maybe they have better ideas than you do. Like maybe you don't know everything and all of that stuff. And that was a big process about 3 years ago that I had to go through of like fully letting go, bringing Matt and Taylor and now everyone else on the team. Um, and
Yeah.
honestly, when you let go, it feels like there's so much weight off of your shoulders. You don't
Yeah.
realize how much you're actually holding on to, because it's your normal every day. Like, it's if someone, like, for example, when you're born, someone put a 50-pound sack on your shoulders and you just grew up with that 50-pound sack. You have no idea that it's even there until you take it off and you're like, holy moly, like this is what it feels. This is what being light feels like.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know if that answers your question. I don't even
Oh
know where
yeah.
I'm going with this anymore. But
Yeah, no,
yeah,
it's 100% a great start. And I think that, and just going back, and it was real cool. Look at just like where you've came from. And I was sharing with Brandon too, is I shared with my community my very first video that I published online. And I was carrying weight, and it was like, I looked 20 years older. I was overweight. I had the weight of the world crushing down on me. And I'm trying to hold space and do this video, and I'm nervous. And I said on that video that I did that video like 10 or 15 times before finally just I'm publishing this one. It doesn't matter if I messed up or whatever, I'm publishing it. And there was this moment of letting go. And that was just this tiny little moment. And each step of the way, the more I grow and the more I get out of my own way and let go, new things are available to me. But if I'm trying to keep the pressure of the world and need everything to be perfect and do everything myself and all that, it's a heavy route. So I can see that with you. And in the whole, and literally, I think of Brandon Lucero, I think of speed of implementation, I think of leadership, I think of messaging. And so the whole speed of implementation conversation, there's a tremendous amount of letting go and being a little bit reckless and fearless almost. And reckless, I wouldn't say that's a bad word whatsoever. So tell us about that. Was it always in your characteristic just to kind of lean in a little bit, or is that something that you had to build as a characteristic of yourself? And yeah, dive into that a bit.
Yeah, I think it's always been there. Again, when it was just me, it was a lot easier to be like, because I'm like, I worked on this video for 3 days. I'm like, I don't want to work on it. Like, it's very easy to let go because you're like, I just don't care anymore. However, because you're like, I just don't want to work on this stupid thing anymore. So it's like, I'm doing it. I'm good. But for me, again, going back to the team conversation, that was the hardest thing to do, is to give them full responsibility and be okay with them making mistakes and really understanding there's not really anything that's really bad that's going to happen. It's going to be like that learning lesson that they need, or it's going to be a success. And I've looked back in my past, like the only way I've really truly learned is through suffering and mistakes and failures. And that's how we get the knowing. That is experience. And experience is far more valuable than getting a degree or education or something along those lines. So I want my team to do that. And that was like that perspective shift I had to make, was like, look, guys, if something's 70% perfect, we need to just get it out there, because the faster we can move, the more people we can reach. If I put out 10 videos that are 70% perfect, quote unquote perfect, but by the way, perfect is just an illusion anyways, but because it's all subjective to your own mind. But anyways, if it's 70% perfect and I can get 10 videos out in the time that it would take you to do 2 perfect videos, I would much rather get 10 of those out, because we're going to hit people, so many different people, so much faster, give people more connection. We can build more connection, build more rapport. We just move, you make so much more momentum.
Yeah.
And like, I have students that have been in our program for 6 months who still haven't published their first video. And I was like, why?
Yeah.
I'd rather you guys get 25% of the framework correct, but have 30 of them out there. That's going to get you more momentum than one perfect video.
Yeah. And you guys take the same approach with just like ads and just testing different messaging, positioning,
and that's the thing, you never know. Like, you can sit there and you can just, especially when it comes to ads, like what most people do is they spend all this time on like the one perfect ad, and sometimes it doesn't convert, and they're like, oh, my ads suck. And it's like, yeah, because you did one.
Yeah. And then they're behind the 8 ball scrambling, trying to get another one going. And converting,
Yeah.
and
And it's just so, it just takes so much time because then you're like, put all the time in one and then it doesn't work. And then you have to go back and correct and redo it. It's just, I mean, it's a pain in the butt. So when we run ads, we run 20 different versions and creatives, and we have a whole process of everything we run because you never freaking know. And usually the one that you think is going to convert doesn't. And the one you're like, no, there's no way that is going to convert. And you're like, wow, it's converting the best.
and that's true, you guys. I've got to sit in on some of Brandon's his company's debriefs, and there's ads that they're just like, yeah, I laughed at this idea, but what you guys said, we wanted to do it, so we're doing it, and it did well. So
can I tell one story real quick about that? Because I know you know this one because you were on our debrief, but we were running our last launch and we were doing our runway, and we were creating the ads in December that we were going to run in January, and the team created a Christmas ad with Santa on it. Because I don't know, somewhere in the communication it got lost that we were running this in January, and people are just like, oh, it's December, Christmas, let's do that. So anyways, we ran it, and my team didn't tell me, and I just see this Christmas ad. I'm like, who the heck is running a Christmas ad in January? So stupid. And then I was like, oh, okay. That's me. That's my profile up there. That's us. And then I read the copy, and they made it like, hey, did you know Christmas comes for entrepreneurs in January? And I was like, wow, that's really smart and creative. And I asked Taylor, I was like, my first response was, turn this off. It's stupid. I didn't even like the graphic. Even if it was December, I still didn't like it. I would have said, turn it off, but I'm like, no, you got to let go, trust your team, and let's see what it does. Maybe we may waste some money. Maybe it works out really well. Who knows? And I asked it to Taylor, like, how did this happen, or what's going on with this? And she's like, oh, the team did this, but I figured I would put a unique spin on it so it's still relevant. And I was like, great. I'll be honest, even in that moment, I was like, that's so stupid. We shouldn't have done that. Didn't say that to the team, but I said, okay, let go, let it run. And Adam, it was our best performing ad out of everything that we did. The lowest cost per lead. We had thousands of people opt in because of that ad. And I honestly believe because it caught people's attention, and the copy was really good. Taylor wrote it, and then it converted really well.
Yeah.
And that's a perfect example of being able to let go. I didn't add stress to the team. I didn't add stress to myself. I let them either learn a mistake or let it really happen. And what it did is it gave a huge amount of confidence to me and my team to let go even more, but it gave a huge amount of my team to be able to take more responsibility, give them more freedom, and allowed them to really grow in that moment. And that was tough. It was a tough thing to do, but
yeah, that is. And most people, and I would say I've done this early on, and I kind of learned my own lessons for this. I would want to jump in and be the savior, right? It's like, no, we can't do this. And then they're not really able to take their own ownership and their own responsibilities of what they're responsible for if I'm ultimately pulling their card and and changing things and things like that. So it is these little things that we look at as big things in the moment, like, oh my gosh, this is gonna, my reputation, not that you thought that way, but just kind of going back a bit, whatever comes up in our mind in the grand scheme of things in 5 years from now, if it flopped or whatever, it's not going to be detrimental to your business. So why are we worrying about it so much?
Yeah. And that's the thing that people don't realize is, like, a lot of people in our programs, they don't put out content fast enough because they think that if they did it incorrectly, that people will not follow them. And usually what happens is we have to look at messaging and content as an ecosystem. It's people have to sit there and experience multiple pieces in order for them to really know, like, and trust you. And if one piece doesn't really resonate with them, they don't just go, that's awful, I'm going to leave. They just ignore it, because another piece might resonate with them.
Yeah.
However, if every single piece over and over and over just isn't resonating, they'll eventually leave. But 1, 2, 3 pieces of content that doesn't totally resonate, it's not going to cause anyone to leave. But when you hit that one, that's just like, boom, they go like, wow. And when someone asks you about, like, for example, if I gave you 4 pieces of content, 3 of them, you're like, whatever about, but one of them was like, holy moly, that shifted my perspective, added a huge amount of value. And then someone 6 months later asked you what you thought about Brandon Lucero's brand. You're not going to say, hey, he showed me 3 videos that were kind of not relevant. You're going to say, hey, there was a piece of content that blew my freaking mind. And most people don't get that.
Wow.
And that was, when you understand that, it's so much easier to, like, let go and push things out faster and just get it out there, because you just want that home run piece to hit, because once it hits, the person's hooked. They're
Yeah.
going to stick with you.
Yeah. And then you know that you struck a vein a little bit. So it's just like, what other messaging can we support around what was ever going on in that ad or that post or whatnot. So that's
Totally.
beautiful. So
Yeah.
working back a little bit, just putting yourself out there, testing, trying, letting go. Can you dissect a little bit the art of letting go at all? I mean, is it just a habit that you're getting into, just like putting stuff out there, leaning into courage? Is it about shifting identities? And just kind of go back in time and walk us through that a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I think everyone has their own process for it. So my process, um, it comes from it's so it's like it's complex. Like I can understand it in my head, but the words to
Mm-hmm.
the words to describe it are kind of like I feel like they don't exist. But I'll do my best. So part of letting go is the reason why people don't want to let go is there's some kind of underlying fear that is there, right? And so for me, one of the reasons why I didn't want to let go was I didn't want them to make mistakes. I didn't want them to cost me money.
Mm.
I didn't want um, our brand to look
Yeah.
bad. I wanted to make sure we were making sales. And so those are all money driven. Mostly for me, it was money driven fear. And when you start to realize how much you're holding on to the money, you really have to start thinking, well, what's your focus on really inside of your business? Is it to really serve and show up, or is it to just try to squeeze out every dime that you can get? And also, it's very short term thinking, because
Yeah.
in the long term, if you're building up a team who's going to be with you for life, the only way you, Brandon, have learned is through experience. And so why would you rob your team of that? And it's like
Great
the whole
point.
slow down to speed up. And so it's just shifting my perspective to get to that point of letting go. And then you really get to this idea or this place of, for me, it was getting to this place of realizing everything's just an illusion. Like well, what happens if you don't make money? Okay, cool. You lose your house, you lose your cars. Like, who cares?
Yeah.
These are just material things. And it's just this sense of shedding. It's like, you just stop holding on to these things that you've been holding on to because you've been told by society they're important. Like, I was like, worst comes to worst, we just move back in with my in-laws. Like, whatever, you've
Yeah.
already built a multi-million-dollar business, just do it over again.
Just give me a couple months and we'll be right back on track or whatever.
Yeah. So it's like,
and that's so right. And that's striking a chord with me, because it was when I was getting out of school, the whole idea, which wasn't even my idea, was the American dream, the white picket fence. And I, as soon as I got into working for different companies and stuff like that, I just like, oh, this is not for me. And then 2008 happened, where a ton of people lost their jobs. I know two people that worked over 20 years at two different businesses, over 20 years each. They were disposable, let go, thank you. And one person actually helped to come build the company, but he didn't have ownership rights and all that. He was just there from the very beginning.
Right.
And they let him go. And at that moment, I was like, "Woo-wee, that's not the route I want to go, because this is bound to happen again." So I was sold on this whole American dream ideal, and it took me a while to really see that that's not what I really want. Then I was sold on this whole idea of the passive laptop lifestyle and automation and things like that. And I tried so hard to have a course online that's just making money. I can go to the beach and sip my Mai Tais or whatever I had in my mind back then. And I soon realized that was not my dream. That was not my vision. That's not what I wanted. I would be miserable by myself on the beach, drinking all day. I got to be with my people. I got to mix it up. I've got to be creative, and I do want to be with a team and growing. And so check your beliefs at the door and see what are yours and what do you hold true for yourself. And that's going to filter through your actions. I mean, tremendously. So.
Yeah. And I think it goes back to just one of the things we preach a lot is remember who you are. And a lot, we kind of go through life, and we've been told what is important, what to think, what success is, what all that is. And I held on to a lot of that stuff, which made it so hard to let go, because it was like, no, I'm trying so hard and fighting so hard to maintain, these society norms, to maintain these things that I've been told by the news and media that are normal, my friends, and what the majority are doing. And I'm just like, I'm not the majority. Like, as entrepreneurs, we're not the majority. We want to go by the beat of our own drum. So why am I holding on to this stuff that's important to the rest of them? It's not me. And, I work with Don Javier, who I know you know and work with as well. And he always says, like, you have to let go of attachment, which we hear all the time. but he's like, there's a difference between knowledge and knowing. Like, yeah, you might know the concept or have knowledge of the concept, but you don't know it. Know it. If you knew it, you'd be doing it. It's kind of like riding a bike. You can get a degree in riding a bike. You don't know how to ride a bike.
Yeah.
You don't know how to ride it until you actually do it. So it was like putting all of that stuff into practice and really like doing, like letting go and just making that a being of my energy and essence and who I am, and getting back to the core of who I am. This is who I am. This is what's important to me. Big houses and stuff, yeah, they're nice, but I'm not motivated by that stuff. And I never was until really I started getting to the entrepreneur world and everyone's flashing their Lambos in their houses and stuff. And I was like, oh yeah, it's important. That's success. And I said, well, it's not. And actually, now that I have 3 kids, I do want a big house, but it's not because I want a big house. It's because I need space.
I need my room.
I need an office. I need my own space, and I need you guys to be able to run around on the other side of the house. So, but that's what I mean. Like, that's who I am. I'm a family man. I need space. Therefore I need a bigger house. It's not like I'm keeping up with the Joneses. I need to make millions. I'm getting a big house.
Yeah.
Way.
And it's almost the reverse side of things when people are striving and pushing. I mean, early on I was striving and pushing for money. Money wasn't coming in. But when I just started following through and showing up and doing my thing and trusting and working from knowing, and, you know, and not only from my experiences, but by this greater awareness that, you know, things are working out for me. And it's just this sense, this feeling. And when I stay in that zone, things work out. But when I do, like you said, a beautiful attachment, right? And Buddha, if he really said this, said, you know, the source of all suffering is attachment. Pain is, or attachment is the root of all pain. So if any given time you're feeling pain, you're feeling stressed and things like that, there's got to be something you're attached to. And there's even times in my relationship with my wife, if things aren't going the way in my mind I want them to go, I could get frustrated sometimes. And it's just because I have this attachment to knowing how our relationship can be, and it is sometimes. And then when it's not, I have this context of, wait, but we can be like this. So it puts me in pain. Right. But when I can let go and know that this is part of the process, it's part of the journey, it's part of the beautiful nature of relationships and of growth and of life, I can get right back in my peace. And usually when I'll say more than usually, when I get back in my peace, things tend to work out.
Yeah, because there's an energy shift, you know, and we do. And that's what you just described is often what we do as entrepreneurs is or even just with your spouse, you have a vision of how the day is going to go or how this is going to go. And then you get very attached to that vision. And when it doesn't go that way, a lot of people get frustrated, or, hey, here's the goal that I wanted, or here's where I should be right now. And you envision it and it doesn't happen. You're so attached to it that because you can't let that go, like you said, you sit in suffering. And a business owner sitting in suffering is not going to be the business owner who's going to produce the results that you want. So it's this ironic thing of like sometimes having this crazy vision, if you're attached to it, the vision is what actually will bring you down because you can't lose that attachment. It's ironic sometimes.
It is. And I've learned, especially through launches, because those are great moments for personal development, just to check yourself, see how you're showing up. But, you know, when I set a goal now, it's literally zero attachment. Yes, there's times where I'm like, you know, let's get this, let's make it happen type of deal, but it's always letting go and working from the vision, not to the vision. And when I can let go of the attachment and just know this is the level of game I'm playing, that's it. This doesn't mean anything about me or the business or anything if we hit this or not. It's just that's the level of game we're playing. And when we can just let go and show up in the way that in our hearts, we know that, hey, look, if I play this level of a game, if I do what I need to do, chances are we're going to be in a very good spot to hit that goal. And even, you know, James Wedmore says too, he's like, they're notorious for not hitting their goals. But James has a multi-million-dollar business, but they're notorious for not hitting their goals. They're literally benchmarks that they're shooting for. That's it.
Yeah. And we have the same thing in our business. I don't think we've ever hit a revenue goal inside of our business ever. And one of the things that we've done, like on our last launch, we had a $3 million goal. And so we, like you said, worked from that goal. Who do we need to be? How do we need to act? How do we need to show up? What kind of experience are we giving? How does your role need to change to be at that $3 million level? And I said, but that's where we need to operate from. But I said, we will never measure success on whether or not we hit that goal. We measure success on progress and growth. Did we make more than last time? Did we do better? Did we give a better experience? Did you grow as an individual? If we can say yes to all those boxes, then that was a success.
Wow.
And I think you need to, and that makes it so we can operate from there, but also makes it so we're not attached to the
Yeah.
goal. We're not
Yeah.
attached to that revenue
Yeah.
number.
Because that causes a lot of stress, and stress will just throw everything off. It'll make the plate spin off the pencils or whatever we're spinning these plates on. So, well, cool, man.
Yeah,
So,
totally.
you had mentioned Don Javier and also the whole conversation around attachment. I'd love to know, and I think you've shared this tids and bits and pieces, but where did your kind of just spiritual evolution start? Was it just in the family growing up, or where did you just really get into this energy conversation?
Yeah, I mean, my mom was always kind of into it, I think. Or not always, but maybe when I was, entering my teenage years. And I was labeled her as like the crazy person. Oh yeah, sure, mom. Like I mean, everything holistically, like holistic, like eat organic and don't eat this. And
Mm.
it's like, what are you talking about? Like, you're crazy, mom. And then now I'm totally like where she's at and deeper.
Yeah.
um, but that's always kind of been there. Like she would get psychic readings, and she actually is pretty psychic herself and does
Mhm.
readings and all of that stuff. She's very gifted in that realm. But I just always kind of pushed it off to the side because I just viewed my mom as crazy. But I did have a really big fascination with getting readings and learning more about the other side and near death experiences and all of this stuff right after I think I left my dad's company. So what tends to happen is like when you're struggling and you're
Mhm.
suffering and you're broke, you just want to like, when is this going to end? And so you're always like, okay, I'm going to get a reading. And so I really went down the rabbit hole from there, getting readings and all of that stuff. And then to make a long story short, I met Jim Fortin, who also introduced me to Don Javier, but I didn't work with him right away. I was a little intimidated, like, I don't know. I don't really know if I need that. And then my brother, Adam, got stabbed in a movie theater by some stranger. Some homeless guy came up behind him in a movie theater and just stabbed him. And he pretty much would have died, almost died. But the Don was able to come in and heal him. And later told me, he's like, yeah, that's what I do. I show up and I serve with an open heart. And sometimes we win those battles and sometimes I don't. And that was a battle that we were able to win. And so healed Adam. And from that moment, I was like, okay, this is who I'm connected with. There's something else deeper going on. And so I started working with him 5 or 6 years ago. And then that has just opened up so much. I mean, it's redefined what I view spirituality as. And I think a lot of people have a misinterpretation of what spirituality actually is,
Mhm.
which we can talk about if you want. But it also led to a huge amount of business growth. A lot of like we talked about attachment, that's just one small little blip or element of the things that I've incorporated into business that have led to bigger growth. Everything from being able to sit into the silence, being grounded, making sure my intentions are in the right, all of that stuff
Yeah.
is coming from the work with Don Javier.
Yeah. And
And
and I love this. And I'm so glad you brought this up because it popped in my head. And I was like, I don't know if I want to pull him in the conversation about your brother, because you shared that at a mastermind event that I was at. And it touched me deep.
yeah,
One reason possibly because his name's Adam. And so
right, yeah,
it's almost like I had this like weird connection. And even how you told the story, and you had also shared how, Don Javier, worked his powers, I guess I would say. And also, your mom, who is a spiritual person too, she went in to see if she could help Adam when he
yep,
was in the hospital, and she had this realization. I don't know what's going on. I'm getting huge chills right now.
yeah,
I don't know what's going on, but the work is done. There's no work to be done. Right. So
yeah.
that right there, I mean, because somebody could take this conversation as like, oh, he said he healed him, but did he, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'll give the context of that. So basically, my mom is a really powerful healer and herself, and energy healer, and she's healed all sorts of people with all sorts of like crazy things that doctors have said. I don't think there's anything I can do. Or people have been on medication for their entire life, and she's able to like help them with a lot of things that they're going through. So she knows she's really powerful and is really gifted in that realm. And so when my brother Adam was stabbed, you walk in, he's in the ICU, 1 inch away from death, hooked up to a machine because he couldn't even breathe on his own, tube down his throat. He couldn't even talk. And my mom gets there and she's like, I'm going to tune in. And I didn't tell her anything about like, hey, the Don is calling in beings and there's different people like coming in and Don's there. I didn't say any of that. And then all of a sudden she does her energy work. She kind of, you can tell when she's in that state, gets into that state. And then immediately comes out and was like, there's something there that is so powerful that I've never experienced before. And she's like, it's just working really fast. She had it. I don't know if this is a video podcast or not, but it was like hand movements of like knitting or something like that. But like she's
Wow.
like as fast as she's like so fast and it's so powerful. And I was like, at that moment, I was like, wow,
Wow.
like to be able to have that connection there and to be offered to work with him is like, okay, there's something else
Yeah.
that I can't see that's going on, and there's a reason for it. And I can't, like, why are you delaying on this gift?
Yeah.
And I finally, that was the day that I finally like was
Yeah.
like, I'm all in, let's
Yeah.
do it.
Yeah.
And it changed my life forever, man.
Yeah, yeah, and being I'm getting to work with Don Javier as well, and I'll share a couple experiences too. But my first, I mean, whenever I used to do energy work, James got me on the track of doing Reiki years ago.
Mhm.
My first
Yep.
experience with that, I had this beautiful experience, but it was so painful because my 3D ego was fighting the whole way. Like my
Mhm.
body was starting to cramp up. It was like trying to distract me from letting go.
Right.
And I got to sit with Don Javier with a group of people a couple years ago, and the whole time my thoughts were just going wild, like just just saying all this random stuff, and I was just like, just be at peace like this. My body's cramping up, and I just
Mhm.
knew that like my ego was fighting like hell to keep
Right.
me grounded, and not only not grounded from a sense of being grounded spiritually or just energetically, but just like staying in control.
Yeah.
And through that, I just kept surrendering, letting go, letting go, letting go. And it was actually the second time that I had met with him. We were leaving, and I got a chance to give him a hug. And in
Mhm.
my mind, I wanted, which you guys hanging around people like Brandon, you're about to get into some spiritual deep conversations. So hang with us here. And so I went up to him. I just had this urge that I was like, we've spent time together before. We just like circled, different eras before. I just knew, and I just had
Yeah.
this like almost like a coming home type of feeling. It was like I miss you. Like I just kept in my head. I was like, I miss you. And I walked up
Right.
to him, and he said, I've missed you. And
Mm.
it floored me. And then he gave me a hug and literally like blew my sockets. Like I've never like I wasn't prepared for it. Like he literally like pumped love through my body like
Yeah.
crazy. And
Mhm.
it fried me. And it
Yeah.
was just like from that moment, I was like, that yet again, it's just like this awakening. But
Right.
I could have easily played it off and my mind was playing tricks or whatever. But once you kind of tap into knowing that there's different things that we can't perceive with our five senses, then you start seeing a lot more. And so I started
Yeah.
seeing a lot more after that experience, and I really, let go even more. Right. So
Yeah. And when it comes to business, all of this stuff is, a lot of it is what I would call like feminine energy, where as business owners, we get so stuck in what's the strategy, what's the process, what's the framework, what are the steps to do, which is helpful, but that's also very masculine energy. And I think that's where, like, especially online space has just been for so long. It's like, what do I need to do? More action, more hustle, more whatever. And what DX or Dawn, the Dawn has really brought to me is this awareness that there is also a lot of invisible things going on, and that's more of like the feminine energy. And you need both of them to be blended together. You need
mm,
both of them. The invisible and the feminine energy could be everything from your intention, your energy, sitting in the silence, like being consciously manifesting all the time instead of unconsciously manifesting, all these invisible things that are going on that we're not aware of because our five senses
yeah.
limit what we can bring into our awareness. If we can go beyond the five senses and incorporate a lot of this stuff, because it's still working, whether you realize it or
Yeah.
not, whether you're aware of it or not, it's still at play.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, to me, I think that's the biggest thing here is like serving with an open heart, the intention, all this like feminine, quote unquote, invisible stuff is coming to my awareness. And when you blend those two together, the feminine and the masculine energy, it's just like, boom, you take off. And what's really weird, or not weird, but when you mess up one of those things, it's quick how fast stuff stops. And I've experienced
Mm,
that as well. I've experienced
mm.
very fast growth. And then I've experienced a halt to it because I messed up. And I could talk about that too, but I messed up and then had to recorrect and then took off again. So
Yeah,
it's,
you opened a loop there. I think the listeners are gonna want to know
yeah,
about that one, and I do too. Do you mind speaking into that a little bit?
yeah.
Yeah.
So to give the backstory, at the end of 2017, we finished out about $500,000 in revenue. And on paper, that's the dream. However, there was like barely any left over because I had a business partner at the time. I had to give a lot of that too. There's also ad spend, there's contractors, there's taxes. And basically whatever profit I was making was supporting our lifestyle, like our rent, and not like we had a crazy lifestyle, but it just paid our bills. My wife wasn't working. So anyways, I hated what I was doing. I gave it all up and I said, I need to figure something out. 3 months later, I was $40,000 in debt. So I had back taxes. I had a failed launch. Still had all these expenses. And I sat in silence and figured out this is what I need to do. I was gifted it, the Forex. So I did it. We took off really fast. We did 1.2 million in the first 9 months. Like we're hiring, we're growing, we're doing really well. And I was accessing everything. Open heart, intention. This is going to change the world. This is going to end suffering. I'm here to help people. And then when I experience a really fast growth like that, you start to get a level of overconfidence, cockiness, arrogance. And that's what I did. I'm like, got this. We're the best. We're going to make so much money. We're blah, 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 blah. And I went from doing like a $400,000 launch to just going into my next launch. And we did 180,000. So like way less than half of what we did last time. And most people are looking, okay, great. You still did 180,000, but let me explain. We grew so fast that our expenses grew really fast too. So to do $180,000 launch, and I only collected 60 of it. So 60, we spent on 60,000 on ads, collected 60,000. So it was a wash. So I basically had $120,000 of recurring revenue if everyone makes their payments. But my business at the time with payroll and stuff, that's roughly $10,000 a month. Let's just call it. My business expenses were more than $10,000 a month. So that was a failed launch. That wasn't enough money to support the growth that we had just experienced. So it was like, oh, what is going on right now? What am I going to do? And I'm like, oh man, right back to where I started from, going back into debt. What are we going to do? And after talking with Jim and talking with the Don, I started to realize like I totally neglected all of that feminine, invisible energy. And I got right back into the masculine of like, oh, we're going to make so much money. My intentions were in the wrong place. And so I had to recorrect. I had to, get back into humbleness. I had to get back right into the intention of serving. And I have to hold myself there. And it's hard because you start to see success and the human nature wants to start taking over. It's very easy to start focusing on the money and what that's going to do and what your life's going to look like and all of this stuff. And you got to get out of that crap and you got to stay grounded and focused with the right intention all the time. And anytime that I find myself getting out of it, I mean, I notice it's even in significant differences in like the engagement we get on our content because the energy's off, everything's different. And that's what I mean by like, I messed it up and had to recorrect.
Yeah.
Great learning.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah. And probably one of those lessons where it's just like, okay, I'll pay more attention. I'll be with it this time.
Yeah.
Like,
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I know.
I'm
No
so
kidding.
sorry.
I've got it now. I've got it. And I was just telling somebody about that yesterday. It's like I used to do something personal development wise and it'd be going great. And then I'd get back on track, not on track, but off track, just doing what I usually do. And then I'm like, why am I sucking so bad? Why does this suck so bad? And I'm like, oh yeah, I'm not doing this. Then I'd get back on it. And that's usually when it's just like, it would latch on at that standpoint. But I needed to learn a lesson to make me realize how important certain things are in my life and business. So
yeah,
100%. So cool. So what was it? And I've been toying with this as well, just trying to put my finger on it and I think it's probably just the same conversation we've been on, letting go. Early on, I knew that I just wanted to serve people. I knew I just wanted to help, but my mind was like, you got to money. And I was coming yet again from a scarcity model. And when I was coming from a scarcity model, things were not growing, right? Because people can pick it up in your energy. It's like I'd be doing my webinar and I'd transition to the pitch and I'd get all nervous and I'd start, just having the scarce feeling, needy energy. And so how was it for you just to kind of like switch that gear? Was it just repetition? Was it feeling into it? Was it honoring that, just like powerful, divine, feminine energy a little bit more to really start coming from this heart-centered place of service?
Yeah, I think all of it. I mean, growth is a continued thing, and so it doesn't just happen over one night. And it is a lot of unlearning or rewiring a lot of stuff as well. But like you said, it is a consistency and a dedication and a mastery of it. And mastery takes consistency, it takes dedication, it's an art form, and and you have to understand that. So I spend probably 40 minutes a day, non-negotiable. At least in most cases it's 40, but at a minimum it's like 15 minutes a day. Non-negotiable. Doesn't matter where I'm at, whether I'm on vacation, how tired I am. There's times where I've gotten to bed and I'm like, shoot, I forgot to do this today. So I get my butt out of bed and I go into my healing room and I do it. But I do, it's like an exercise or a type of meditation that opens up my awareness to a lot of different things, or even just sitting in silence and really harnessing what I need to harness. So sometimes if I really want to open my heart, I set the intention and I'll sit there for 40 minutes, letting my heart open. And sometimes nothing happens, but sometimes I can feel it and I can move it and I can feel the thoughts in my head moving the heart open, or the compassion expanding. And I hold myself there as long as I can. And then when you leave that space and you go throughout the day, you can actually, like, in little glimpses, you can get yourself back to the compassion and all of that stuff. And then it's living it. It's getting out of the ego. Your wife comes down or your spouse comes down and says something that kind of rubs you the wrong way, and you feel the automated response come up. It's stopping that automated response and just feeling nothing, love and compassion. Again, doesn't happen all the time because I'm human, but it has literally transformed my wife's and I's relationship. And I believe it only takes one person to change a relationship, but it has shifted our relationship so much, especially over the past year, since I've made that dedication to living in compassion, operating with love, and incorporating that into everything we do. Like, you come into the Video 4X program and you come in the Facebook group and you talk with me and you hop on our calls. Everything is about ending suffering. It's about compassion. It's about love.
Yeah.
We create messaging from a place of love and compassion. It's ingrained into everything that we do.
Beautiful, beautiful. That's huge. And I think that the big takeaway there is the awareness. And I've noticed that too. Early on, when I was thinking about money, I literally wake up and I'm like, I'm 12K in debt, I'm 14K in debt. I was like counting my debt every single mornings instead of counting my blessings. Then I started shifting because I don't know what audiobook it was or whatever, but this one line just smacked me in the mouth. It said, if you're focusing more on your debt or your lack or anything like that, you're basically worshiping your debt. Because I was placing way more energy and attention on the lack than I was on what I had in my life and also what I'm creating. And so when I shifted and started becoming more aware and more attuned, more connected to the energy, that's when I started being able to work from this deeper place of knowing and trusting and allowing, and just being able to get out of my own damn way. Because if my whole intention is get out of debt, I got to find money, I got to find money, then all I'm doing is looking for these opportunities where there's money. And even if I get money at that standpoint, that doesn't necessarily mean that I'm creating abundance and tapping into abundance. I might have bridged a quick little gap, but I'm going to continue that cycle until I let go. Yeah.
You're also letting the universe know that you want more debt. Like, this is where my focus is. This is where my attention is. This is where my energy is. And the universe goes, okay, great.
Yeah.
Give them more of it.
Yeah.
And I love what you said about the gratefulness, because that's a huge piece of everything that I do too. And we incorporate inside of our company. In fact, every team meeting that we have, that group meeting, we always start with everyone going around talking about one thing, at least one thing that you're grateful for. And we do that every team meeting. It's the gratefuls. Everyone knows what it is. And I think that is also something that causes a lot of suffering, is like, and again, I'll just tell a personal story. Like, I've been with my wife for 21 years. It's not an easy thing to be staying with someone, especially when you're 15 and 16, you go through so much growth and you grow together. Sometimes, I mean, we always catch up to each other, but sometimes she'll do something and I have to catch up, or vice versa. But living in gratefulness, it's like, sometimes I will get mad at her, or sometimes I'll be like, man, is this really the person that I want to be with for the rest of my life? And then, because you're getting into a lack of gratefulness, it's like, and then you look around and go, well, you have so much to be grateful for. She's always supporting you, always has and always will. She takes care of the kids so that you can focus on what you want to focus on. She does. And you just go through the list and you're like, what do I have to not be grateful for? And then as soon as you live there and you live with compassion, it's like a newfound love for your spouse. And this is what we experienced over the last year, but even the last 2 years is like, we've always been in love, but it's almost like refinding each other again. But it's all because of our focus and our perception of the world, our perception of how we see the world and how we see each other. And I believe you can use that for anything. Use it with your students, your team, your customers, your audience, all of that stuff.
Yeah.
It's powerful.
Man, it is. And this is also something, the small little tiny shift in this all, and I can feel it for you when you talk about it, is for the longest time, my gratitude practice, it was all analytical. My computer, my car, my house, the roof on my head, heating and air. I just go through the list. There was no emotion, no connection to it whatsoever. But when you can feel it and really feel that gratefulness and that appreciation, that deep connection, that's what's creating. That's what's going to change your state, change how you're thinking, change how you show up, change the energy. But it isn't just, I mean, because we see it on Instagram, what are you grateful for? But like, feel it, really connect deeply with it.
Exactly. You have to feel it. You have to feel grateful. You just can't say grateful. Big difference.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful, man. So cool. So let's shift this conversation back to what is driving you now. And you mentioned, ending suffering. Like what was it that really kind of like caught your attention, and what are you really kind of rallying against, so that way you can help people to move away from some of these painful situations? Like, what is it that's fueling you today?
Yeah. So one of the reasons why we help people with messaging is because I want to give change makers and online business owners and even offline business owners the tools to be able to shift people's perspective. I think there's a lot of perspectives that people hold in this world that they have been told to hold, and it hasn't necessarily been their choice to hold them. And we just don't know. We get indoctrinated through parents, societies, teach, kind of like I was talking about earlier.
Mm-hmm.
We just go through life as a baby. We're not born with beliefs. We're not born with what is right and wrong. We're not born with anything. We learn all that through environment. And I think there's a lot of people that are suffering because of these indoctrinations that they have. And so what I want to do with messaging is we unwind a lot of these indoctrinations in various niches. For example, inside of my niche, I think this idea of doing how-to content over and over and over and over again in order to grow is backwards and outdated, but people get indoctrinated into it because that's what everyone tells you to do. So I unwind that. And then I teach other people how to unwind it inside of their space. So one of the reasons why that's my focus is because that's how I want to end suffering. That's how we end suffering, so people are more free. But really what I'm doing on a bigger picture, like what really drives me, is I know when we can do this and we have enough people doing this, we can literally shift society norms that are causing suffering. Because I think there's a big problem right now where the way society has been operating for the last 50 years, there hasn't been much change. Like, yes, we've seen technology and more cars and stuff like that, but I mean, like, this system hasn't changed. The way education is done, how we teach success, which is go to school, get a degree, the way we just teach people about the future, it's all changing. There's so much change happening right now that the big question is, how do we raise our kids to be prepared for a future that we literally have no idea what it's going to be? We have no idea to prepare them. However, 30 years ago, we had a great idea of what success was and how to be successful. Like, you go to school, you get a degree, you're going to get a good job. But nowadays, kids don't know what they want to do. They just spent $100,000 on an education with a degree that doesn't really give them an advantage. Most of them aren't even going to use the degree in the field they end up in. And there's so many possibilities of things you could do now that didn't exist. And the idea of operating with your passion or doing something that you're passionate about is very real and very possible today. But the system, the structure, and the way we bring up our kids is not set up for them to adapt. So for me, that's the bigger picture. I need to break down society norms. I'm going to do that with myself and my students so that we can start to have these conversations. And eventually, what I think the direction we're heading is eventually having some type of like school or online education system that can replace or be another option, as college would be, for kids that don't really know what they want to do or know there's something more. Because the kids nowadays are different. They have different operating systems. They have different focuses in their parents. And to be able to support and help them with that and discover that. And then even work with the parents on helping them let go so that kids can be happier, and all that stuff is kind of a direction I would say in the next 5 to 10 years of
Wow, that's
where I want to go.
beautiful. That's beautiful. And you also teach that in your program as well, is to inside your business and your message have that North Star that's really driving everything that you're doing, which is important. I mean, that's how we started the conversation. It was just like you had this vision of this next level and where you're heading and what's possible. And when you keep your attention on that versus the debt and the lack and whatever you're experiencing and the failed launch or whatever from yesterday, you can shift your attention to what really lights you up, then it's a lot easier to keep moving forward. So that's beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful.
And I'm great. I'm so grateful. Like, and I'm not just saying this, I literally feel I'm so grateful for when I was in debt. And that was like one of the hardest times of my life.
Yeah.
And I'm so grateful for that experience because it was such a massive, massive, massive lesson for me that anytime now when I'm going through a hard situation, I now realize how much that's going to help me grow and what lessons it's going to give me, that I'm literally feeling grateful for the hard times, which is amazing because I'm going through the hard times without the emotional suffering. So I'm still experiencing like, man, this is kind of difficult. This is uncomfortable, but there's no like emotion of stress, worry, fear, concern. It's always like, wow, this is so exciting. Like what lessons am I going to learn from this? And again, it just goes back to living in that compassion and that gratefulness all the time.
Yeah, because other people are going to experience it too. And later on in life, you're going to be able to look back and share your own experiences and stories to help people to navigate through that as well. So we're all going through it for a reason. We're all going through it for some sort of a meaning. So find meaning in what's going on. So a couple quick questions to call this complete. I asked James a similar question about his hobbies per se. He was surfing a lot, right? We all saw James surfing forever. Now he moved out to Arizona and he's doing Airbnb fixing up, and now he's working on his van. And I see you as your time with your kids is kind of like your don't want to say your escape from business because you're not escaping anything, but it almost fuels everything you do. Can you put that in any sort of words or just how instrumental that is to balance the two? Or you get what I'm throwing at you?
Yeah. I mean, there's three aspects to my life. There is family, and then there's business, and then there's me time. There's Brandon time. And I need all three. And the very simple answer, and this is not going to be anything new that you guys probably haven't heard, but you need that time so you can be that better business owner and to yourself, and be a better business owner, and to serve your family better because you're rested, right? You need all of that. But I think on a deeper level, you need it to remember who you are. Like, I am not like Brandon. I'm not just Brandon Lucero father. I'm Brandon Lucero, change maker. Here's what I want to do. Impact, spiritual, leader, like all of those stuff is who I am. And if you're not careful, you get too wrapped up in the identity of father, husband, business owner, and you completely lose those other aspects of yourself. So it is vital for me to have that alone time. And on the flip side, I can say the same thing in each department. Like if I'm too wrapped up in myself and I'm too wrapped up in business, I lose the family like the family identity.
Yeah.
Your identities are where you spend your time. And there's nothing wrong with not wanting, like if you have kids and you don't want to be a father, whatever, like that's your choice. But my choice is to keep that. And I'm very active of making sure that identity is alive and well, because if I'm not spending time there, then that identity is gone. And do you know how it is? Kids grow up so fast. Like my daughter turned 5 today. Today's her 5th birthday. I'm like, what in the world? You were just like 1 a week ago. What the heck? And
time takes on a different trajectory with kids. It seems to, anyways. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like, especially with COVID right now, I mean, such a blessing. And it's like to be able to have that time with them where, he's back in school, but they do shorter days. They do 1 day a week of homeschool. And I'm like, I get to go have lunch with my son on Wednesdays. And I'm like here, and I get to work from home. And what a waste it would be to have this opportunity and to not take advantage of it because I need to like write an email or do whatever. Like I'll move deadlines to spend more time with my family. And it gives me an opportunity to go like have adventures as well. Like I'll pack my kids up, like, get in the back. Let's go do this.
I love those when you share those on IG. Yeah.
Yeah. We're going off-roading. We're doing whatever. And I get to have fun doing the things I want to do. And it's it's a great blessing, but it's also like, hey, Jacqueline, my wife, hey, Jacqueline, like, let me do you a favor and get the kids out of your hair for the day. And I'm going to, okay.
You owe
Like
me
this,
one though.
like this
Even
weekend, I
though I
wanted to
love
go,
to do this.
yeah, I wanted to go to Sedona this weekend. And I had just been there like 2 weeks ago and left the kids with Jacqueline. And I was like, you know what? You need a break. I'm going to take the kids away for like 4 days. You have your time. I'm going to go to Sedona with them, but I'm going to take them out of your hair. And she's like, okay, sounds great. I'm like, cool.
Wow. Yeah.
Back to Sedona.
There you go.
But yeah, I don't know if that really answers the question.
Oh yeah,
but
100%. It doesn't. And what I was kind of getting at too, it's almost like when we can have something outside of work, and it's even hard to call it work when you love what you do, but outside of your business that fuels you, really. I mean, to just like you can connect deeper. You can have more fun and joy in your life. You get to laugh and just be, yet again, like, I mean, you said this numerous times, remembering who you are when you're playing with your kids.
Yeah.
You get to remember even more of who you are. So I think that the big thing I was getting at is, how does this lead into your business and what you're able to do? And yeah, so.
Well, one more thing that I think is really important that I just realized actually now as we're talking is, especially in the business that we're in, like thought leadership, like serving other people, helping other people, it's very lesson driven and it's very experience driven, meaning that there's a lot of people out there that will take information, they'll package up information and they'll try to sell it. But it's very difficult for them because they don't have a knowing of it. They're just teaching and selling the knowledge, which is fine. You can do that. But the people that generally succeed in this business are the ones who teach from the knowing. They're the ones who have actually done something so they know it deeper. They can communicate it deeper. They can talk to it deeper. They can know your thoughts and your feelings. Like they're better teachers as well. And if you're so wrapped up in your business all the time, you actually stop the knowing from happening. You stop going out and learning lessons. You stop there's so many lessons I've learned from my kids about myself, about like how I parent, about them doing something and having an automated response and having to correct that. I've learned more. Having kids has been the fastest self-development course that I've ever taken, because you really learn about yourself. And I get to bring that back to the students. It makes me a better teacher when I go out on my own and I'm having these amazing experiences. Like I went for a hike a couple months ago and I found a tarantula. I saw this tarantula and it led to like this huge major aha, like, holy moly, this would be great for a podcast episode. And it was amazing. And I'm able to connect. Like I'm learning, I'm gaining experience, I'm gaining knowing, I'm experiencing lessons that I can now get to bring back into business. Where if I'm just wrapped up business 24/7, you completely stop the knowledge and the knowing from ever happening.
Yep.
They're vital. It's absolutely vital for growth.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's what you talk about too, is silence. And it's not only silence in like sitting in meditation, but being fully present in what you're doing. And that's when, you experience great growth too. And I have a spiritual friend who's an intuitive, and I did a session with her, I'd say probably 3 months ago. And the big message was, why are you working so hard? I just got done with my first launch of this new program that I created, which Brandon helped me with, just to kind of have some different positionings that I wasn't quite seeing fully, because Brandon is very good at seeing the unseen. And I just got done and I felt like I carried us over the finish line a little bit, which, it is what it is, no meaning to it. But then I felt like I needed to keep going, like right away. And I had a call with her the very next day. Actually, it was just right after the launching, and she, my guides, basically asked the questions like, why are you working so hard? It's like, it's already done. And your time, your creative time, the time where you're growing the most is when you're looking that little boy and your wife in the eyes, right? When you're fully present with them, because that is these moments of silence where the things kind of just get caught up. But if we're always striving and pushing and staying up late, sending that one email, and look, I do it too sometimes. I got a presentation I'm working on tomorrow. I might stay up a little bit later tonight, but I'm still going to go get my little man time in and connect. And so if there's something that, even if it's not, you have kids or anything else, if you have something to connect with deeply with, and I even shoot hoops sometimes, I'll go shoot some basketball and I connect deep. I'm silent and I'm just like in a flow. So whatever you can do outside work to let go in order to let in a little bit more, it's just like, look for those moments, because that's when you're going to grow. That's when the ideas come. And that's when, you're working with your sense a little bit more. So
silencing the thinking mind and the external world. Absolutely.
Yeah. So cool. So how you want to wrap this up? What's kind of one takeaway, especially for early stage entrepreneurs who are just getting started and maybe they have some success and then they're finding some struggles and things like that? What would you like to maybe even send back a message to the version of yourself that was in their shoes? What would you like to say to them?
Yeah, I think the thing that I would say back to myself back, if I was going to go 5 years, 10 years back, is to, number one, get out of your own way. Like I took a lot of action and I was not really afraid and I was really courageous, but I was also stubborn and didn't like to listen and didn't accept help. But it wasn't until I got mentors, and I had two great ones, at Jim and James, and that I really, started to take off. And Don, Jim, James, and Don, 3 mentors. Like I can't imagine having 3 better mentors than that. And that was when my growth really started to happen. And when I started to, 200,000 a year, 300, 400, 500. But when we started getting to the millions, like 1 million, I think we went from like 800,000 to like 1.1 to 2 is what we did last year. And we're on pace to do 3 or 4 this year. You start getting into the millions. It was really accessing a lot of what we talked about today, which is the invisible, and that there is a direct correlation of your personal growth to successful growth inside of your business. And incorporating that feminine energy, like we talked about today, is so vital. And if I would have said any of this to Brandon when he was just starting his business, it was like, you get off whatever drugs you're taking and just give me the strategy.
Future version of myself is weird, man.
Like, yeah, just tell me what we did, bro. Like, tell me what we did, man. Let's just speed it up. I was like, dude, I just told you what we did. Like, okay.
Oh, I love this so much.
Yeah. But that's what I would say. It's like really, truly embracing that, because it to me, and from my experience, that is the key to success.
That's so beautiful. So beautiful. Well, thank you so much. And you guys, we didn't talk much about Brandon's Video Forex Effect program, but there's literally 1 or 2 programs out there that are staples for entrepreneurs. And one is Brandon's for sure, because it's not only about messaging. I mean, when I went through Brandon's program, I got a chance to get really clear on my offer as well. Just because when I'm creating my message, what I want to create, what I want to stand for, what I want to help people with, that helps so much clarity. And from that, it's almost like my message took on a life of its own, to where I couldn't shut it down if I wanted to right now. It would burn up inside me. So if you guys, when you have the opportunity, and Brandon, I don't think his doors are open right now. Maybe if you send me a message, maybe I can sneak in or something, but yeah, just keep an eye on that. And if you do have any questions at any time about Brandon's program, I'm all here for you guys. So thank you, Brandon, for all the guidance and all the leadership and everything that you've done for me over the years. And it's been an awesome podcast, and I'm grateful for your friendship and your mentorship as well. So from the bottom of my heart, man, thank you.
Yeah. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Adam Kadu podcast. If you would take a moment to subscribe and click the bell icon, so that way you get notified when future episodes air. Now, here's the thing. If you are looking for the show notes, you can find a link to those below. If you're looking for the handles of the guests that I've been interviewing, things of that nature, you'll find that here. And if there's anything else that stood out to you in the episode, or if there's anything I can do for you, please leave a comment below, or for sure message me on Instagram if you'd like, as I'm always looking to hear what's working well for you and what caught your interest about the Adam Kadu podcast. So, time to go, time to change the world, time to help more people. Are you ready? Let's go do this thing. The world needs more leaders. So thanks again for listening to the Adam Kadu podcast.